It's not working? The audio or what?
No, nothing's coming through, and it says the video upload rate's bad. You might be okay.
Alright, you got this. I gotta do some other stuff.
Yeah, do what you gotta do, man. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Let me know when it works. Alright, figure it out. Done with my stuff already. Okay. Got it. Is it working? I hope so. Nice. Okay, check it out. We wanted to say hi to Shirley too. And Shirley. Do you have I'll come see her. Okay. Do you have a Wi-Fi here?
Yeah,
Right there.
right there
on the wall. Perfect. Yeah, I gotta come say hi to Shirley. She's one of my favorites.
Never been here before. Actually, I don't think I've been in any years.
Really?
This is a really nice one. It's nicer than PSAR.
I haven't seen the one in Chula Vista, but I remember when East County used to go there for your tech meetings.
Yeah, so, or you do tech here?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, now I do everything. I was the tech guy, now I'm tech. I have a membership and
other duties as a
freaking facilities. That's what I'm saying. If you want to rent some space, I got 1,000 square feet. So you got here. I got 11 anyway. You know, sure.
Sure. Okay, well, then when I get there, she goes, oh, I didn't know if you wanted large or something. I told her you were going to be ready. You can take my phone down. I gave my phone number. I gave my phone. Just aggravating the issue. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Listen.
See, everything was supposed to be runners this spring? Oh, skater runners. That's like 30, this is $34, and these are 19 because they're small instead of large. But they're really not bad for
The rats are cool.
the price. It's not bad. Use some tennis time. I'm very salad to hope for it. No.
Tennis out is always good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they should.
Oh, and what? Oh, you're right here.
Wait. David, no, wait. Yes, you are. That's the thing. Jack Hamel? He's here. He's already here?
Yeah, they're looking for you.
I told her to come sit around an hour. She could fish it out. You ever know what the traffic's gonna be on? The other one?
I know it.
I told Jeff Cameron, you know, it's like, bring family and friends. He's like, okay.
We go find them. I said, you're on.
Howdy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
We're here.
We're here. I know.
We came early. Since we've never been here, we thought we should get a tour first, you know. James gave us a little tour. You ready?
Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy to you too.
Came all the way up here to the Great Mark County
Ah,
just to see you guys.
just to see us. We appreciate that.
I've never been to one of your roosters before. In all the years I've been here, I've been by here.
I am not happy about that.
I tell you, you know, I'm gonna come here and have that potty break here. Perfect. Use the Wi-Fi.
You mean this is the first time?
And I've had property this way.
I ain't gonna have to report you.
My golly. Well, you know, I don't see you out of East County very often either, so. Fortunately, stuff.
That's like on a whole other world.
I know, it's like 40 minutes away. That's why we don't come up here that often. That's the property.
Jeff Frankie,
Yeah, that property.
you need to come.
Yeah, I'm with Arista County guys, he had managed to bring in. No, I'm actually looking between you and I. I was just saying that the legal update. They are.
Okay.
Like that stuff. Yeah, I had it years ago. I had a broker done one in the office.
Hi.
Stay focused.
Stay focused, yeah. He was very bright, but squirrel.
Sometimes I have instructors like that. It's like, okay, let's focus.
Well, the
Focus.
funny
Focus.
thing about that is I can be that way, so I really brought it because I had more focus than she did.
That's
Scary.
scary.
Yeah.
That's scary.
So, we.
My baby.
Oh my God. You.
How are you? So good.
You hit my thing.
We're here, please.
Well.
That's already done. Why you here opening?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
This is like the old days.
Look for work.
Do what Shirley says.
Yeah, so I had to E and E broke.
Hello, fellow realtors.
Wow.
Leo.
Yeah, yeah. I-
Oh, yeah. You in submission.
Hello.
There you go. Get us out there. My name is Jeff.
This man, this Mike, and he's on the Mission Valley. Please. Shirley, what do you need help with?
Agent, theoretically assistant manager for. Yeah, no, that's scary, isn't it? I mean, luckily it's still a small company, but I've worked for bigger ones. You know what they're like.
All right, I'm Jeff. Oh my gosh, she's on here again.
Sure.
It's a pleasure, Shirley. My hands are full. Good to see you, Cheryl.
At least you're elbow. You're a good worker. I'm gonna
Well,
keep
you
it.
went.
Yeah.
The keeper. Yeah. So Shirley, life's good. How's your family? Everybody's good.
Everybody's good and all is good in the neighborhood.
Well, you know, I've never been in your company. I know that not every human can always be up.
Oh, I see.
I'm so excited. This is such a cool place.
Williams. Your hands are cold.
Well, you know what?
Was it cold in Alpine?
You know,
Okay,
I just
warm
stay here
heart.
and just hold your hand.
Excuse
You know,
me.
that's strangers I'm okay with. No, it's holding carrying the sodas over.
That
Yeah, I know.
explains
It's
it.
like so. Yeah, so good. And hi, Jeff.
Hi, Tiffany.
It's a pleasure.
Nice to
Good.
meet you.
I'm out of Alpine.
Right here.
Yeah, yeah. This you guys have a beautiful service. Oh my gosh.
Oh, hey, you just come here and you want to.
I came from Mission Valley. And,
Oh, okay, let me have a commercial broker.
you know, no traffic. So.
Yeah.
It was nice, and I'm just overwhelmed. It's so big. Our service centers are
Cozy.
2,500.
Okay. But your service center.
Oh, we have two of them.
Oh, okay.
And this is actually too small.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you
I think so. It's caravan.
Oh, you do caravan in here?
Oh, caravan is in here. See, our caravan room is twice as big as this.
Oh, it's probably,
This is caravan.
probably 3 or 4 times the size.
Well, so you guys do Vistas, San Marcos, Escondido in your caravans?
I think it was separate.
It is.
Yeah, this is held on Fridays. That's gonna be a Tuesday.
Everything gonna eat your food.
I had a,
Pacific got the
San
answer.
Marcos, so I called Carol, and I said, Carol, where do I go to pitch? And this, she was setting up a consultant, so I said, oh,
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
well, I don't do art caravans, unless I have something that's, that's gonna be on the market a while.
Oh, okay. How did the San Marcos system? Was somebody new?
So one of my farms,
That's a nice release.
and I've been doing this for years, I was our attorneys, and so it was force.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
Let's see here. Hey. Yeah.
Good, no, but it's perfect. Big refills.
Yeah, still. Especially in that price point.
Yeah, and it's really on the threshold of what I would
You're not true.
Sure.
It comes to a point where you should have somebody who knows.
Oh, I know, right. I am out.
Yeah.
I'm not from down here. I relocated. When I came down here, I went to Ocean. So I didn't know. So I tried to learn every single thing.
Oh.
Every single thing, and then I went, I'll forget that. And so I drew, I'm on it. It's crazy. Basically, North County, I kind of screwed with the parameters.
Right.
Cost effective, knowledge, of the area.
Oh gosh, for years I've, well, second generation real estate, so. I still wake up at 5 when I get to work. Still dig. Oh yeah, I'm one of our CAR directors. And so I was speaking to from the county.
Usually does a lot of talking.
He is deep into his
He
He
might make me a liar, but the last time I didn't see him. So
and yeah, exactly. He was the gold rush. And so I 48 years, whatever it was.
that's a keep
It does, right? Diverse.
Aren't you burnt out?
like this is the only job.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
And he says,
Yes.
There's always somebody catching something just a little different than everybody else.
What about him?
yeah. No. It was before that. It was when everybody grabbed some dirt, spit in their hand and shake. Yeah. And so again, it was, he burnt out. And it was very weak. And
Has real life stories too.
and why are you here? And he told me that there were days of being burnt out, yet having never end passion. And so, we're all humans. We have a bad night's sleep, we get cranky because of you got those clients. We all have those. But it's the hope that today brings a beautiful opportunity to have this great chance to help somebody to when I really recruit people into the industry.
Otherwise, we would have been 16.
it's all about,
How do you want to play?
what do you, I'll talk to somebody and I don't know if I have those 2 hours. And trustworthy, are you optimistic? Will the human who has right character? Then you have a lot of things help it. If you do their businesses, sometimes it helps that they're house and they're coordinated in some area or somewhere. But it is, there's nothing more radical than housing. So they can grow first, but that's what we do. And so I think that's worked for me. I just called it own a couple of real estate. So
Yeah, and talking to people like it,
that's so yeah, I still think my I would say they real estate. Much your great.
did not encourage it. I never seen it.
Yeah.
She's like,
My son, I just very tested shape. Oh, I see what you do.
that was so
You know what? Yeah, placing the sign for open house, advertising and working, night, conference call, every day, now. But we can see it and, you know, different structure, different hope. You know, he's in a paying job and he's very focused. You know, he wants to do more.
This is all big.
Hey.
I know.
Credit for. Yes, right. We don't have a lot.
Technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Well, you go over first.
I started married. So, you know, that was always mine. You know, Jeff just called her morning because.
Good morning. How are you?
Person on the house.
Well, the other person.
Hey.
I don't have to leave early anymore. Harry got cancer, so,
Okay.
but he's got half of it, I got the other.
All right. Hi. We'll get to the sign here in a second when you get a chance. Come on in, Brandon. Oh, it's a go.
You know, share the,
You like that? I get that. You got one.
share the wealth of the Lord, share the wealth of
All right. For you, thank you.
somebody who, that's like, not good, they scream out a lot, or.
I'm here, I am, we are.
Hey, let's get something.
Yeah.
Good. We're making progress, you know, you're.
Are you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So I'm glad to see it.
I was not ready.
Yeah.
No, were you? Are we getting a double barrel of 2 attorneys?
Oh my
today? Is that what's
God.
going on? 2 for
How are
the
you,
price
man?
of 1. Oh my gosh. Let me see what you look like.
How are you? Well, I was thinking of doing that, but I said, no.
Oh,
Okay.
so you're a professional husband, is what you're saying?
Oh. She wants to give a. I kind of like
I
that.
didn't see. We are.
It's a two for
Yeah, okay, good. When I saw the flyer, I was very excited about it. Well,
life's good otherwise.
It doesn't matter, I'll determine for myself what's useful.
How you been?
Hey, no
Really
wonder.
good, you know, I wanted to
I
refer
was like, oh, I called him after.
I told my wife
What were you
that
talking about?
I was going to see you.
Oh, a little overloaded.
So
Oh.
many years ago.
Yeah.
Talked to my daughter, went to share a legal, a year ago.
Oh.
So this gentleman I was talking to about, so would you recommend anybody else become an attorney? This is talk to you 5 years ago, I was a bit facetious, but, anyway.
There you go.
So she wanted to become an attorney in law school, but
You go. You're welcome.
see what it's like first, so she apparently doesn't.
But you don't want to say you want to be, say, overstressed, overworked attorney.
Or real estate broker. I mean, how are we gonna interchange that? And we know some people who are,
Yeah.
and
I think it's a mistake. It's not a mistake to be both, but it's a mistake to put JD on your.
You know where I live, right? I know where you work.
Now, your look at your legal knowledge as well.
through discovery, they find that stuff out anyway.
You know, depends on the presentation. You're telling people, hey, come with me on the JD, which means they're not yet lawyers. And they're free, and I'm also a broker. I'll take a couple of trouble, just like if you're a contractor and a broker.
Oh, okay.
I don't like that. Now, when you're doing your real estate work, you're held to a higher standard, not just a visual inspection, but a visual inspection with the eyes of the contractor.
So I'm going to ascend to your most conservative lifestyle and approach now, take Toastmaster off my broker's card.
No, Toastmaster means you can control the BS.
Yeah.
That's good.
And unfortunately, they don't hold them to a higher standard, so.
No, not with him. All they have to do is get to know him. You know, my defense in the case is this, when the buyer says, well, I relied on my agent. Why is he a real estate agent? I mean, seriously?
It's available, I can use it.
Okay.
If it's not a very good,
Make your own
deal. Yeah, I do this.
We're excited to be here.
I'm glad you're
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I think I need
getting us up to eat, friend.
Oh, yeah.
It's Friday.
You have one already?
Are you talking about the ICA?
I know.
In the context of the downside of
Oh, you do this. Do that again.
Do I need to sign
You
it?
ready? Yes, back here.
Thank you.
So.
We don't go into time.
Is there any equity there?
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, sure.
I
Are you gonna
think
take out the first, like, says up first?
We're gonna have to.
Take a subject
or
over.
you just take it like your share or your letter.
I mean, we're gonna say,
Unless
oh,
someone,
Theo.
unless someone comes in and pays you off.
That was my client, that wasn't mine.
But
The office home.
chances are, I was gonna point it out, so you should put your glasses. Because you're designing.
Can you ever rest? Tiffany, this is Brad.
I know,
Yeah.
Hey, when you first listen to Ross, you can go ahead and work on that.
Okay, I don't see, they charge more.
Oh,
Sure, that's fine. Did you get all your?
I'm like, I didn't even know that's not like that. I didn't know you were shocked. I was like,
Maybe you need to do that once. Can't do
So let me talk about.
all right, man.
Okay.
So, okay.
Oh, okay.
What time is it?
Yeah.
9:00. Wow, yes.
You go back to your office, just say, tell everybody they want to call me, and I'll.
Okay. How are you?
Now my day is complete. I love you. Oh, it's so good to see you. I had the best time with Myra.
I can too. It's really fun.
Now, we saw so you obviously just got an AR.
No, I'm not in the area. I have enough to do.
Well, you know what? That takes so much of our time. Now, do you know Mike? Because Mike was.
We met. Yeah, we did. We met. No, him like when it's party, like you know.
You're not as tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as
That was a different thing.
People.
Yeah, the hotline is also an attorney at Kimball Tyrese. Yeah, and they're listed.
Okay.
All right. They don't cooperate, and one side or the other has to go back to the judge and say, don't make an order. If one of the sides,
It looks so fun.
you call His attorney.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I'm sorry for water.
I love the video of the guy on the boat.
And there's
You know what?
It's hard.
All the attorney has to say, you're trying to do this. Yeah, because the offer's gonna put it in. She's gonna sign it. Oh, she'll sign it. Mr. Evans. Good to see you. Yeah, it's been a little while. How's life? Bill Fred Pfister, Billy, our legal mice.
Yeah. I know I
And I don't
deserve
either.
it. We didn't talk about what we deserve as the status. So great looking tie, but.
Oh, it's, Charday. There's a 2 weeks. I love the city. Well, you know what,
You don't need to show that out.
We're very lost.
So when I was there, I lost them all. I didn't know this is 5 months ago.
Yeah, good to see you.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you sure? Okay, I'll squeeze in. Shirley will be able to tell you. She's in the back with the. Oh. Yeah. Why didn't the bench? You look at those chips and look at the ingredients. Yeah, it's chemical and that chemical is chemical.
They're gonna put the alcohol.
I feel the same way about microwaves. They're the best.
Now, this one have a very simple list of ingredients. This one has corn, corn oil, salt.
So these give a raw zucchini for the money.
Oil, you know it. You look at ingredients of most chips, it has a ton of stuff in them.
Exactly.
And corn chips have corn oil and salt.
I didn't, you know what? You make people feel better. You make me feel better about it.
There you go.
I think I'd go for it.
They're actually health food, so, you know.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. The ingredients are covered. Oh, yes. But that's a newer incarnation of Chex Mix. The more health food Chex came out. You can like and I love them, Doritos. Look at the ingredients. Oh, really?
Why don't you put the writings on soup? They come after you. All right.
Everything.
Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
What a great group. So I'm David Bright, represented this association in the 7 boards before that since '85. It's only been 30 plus years. I've been practicing for 43 years. I started at 10. I was a prodigy, and it's really a pleasure to be here. My partner, Fred Pfister, we're from White and Bright. Don't you love it? En Espanol, Blanco y Brillante. Come on down. No case is too big or too small for White and Bright. We're in Escondido. I have defended agents and brokers in over 600 lawsuits in nearly 4 decades. I have defended agents and brokers against the dreaded PRE in over 150 cases. I testify as an expert witness on behalf of brokers. This is what I do. This is it. We give advice to our agents on a daily basis. We represent a bunch of offices. We are fully immersed in your industry. So I'm here to give you a few words of wisdom and try to do, those of you old enough to remember the Vulcan mind meld. Remember when Leonard Nimoy would come up to somebody to impart everything he knew, and they both scream and yell, and that person would know everything. Leonard, God bless Leonard, I love him. So we're here today to give you a legal update, and I'm going to start by going off the pre-printed page because there is a real problem out there. I'm going to give you practical advice and tell you my perspective, the BREs, the Superior Court, etc. Here's the deal. Coming soon. Off-market listings. I think it's a forebearer or a warning sign of the end of cooperation in the industry as we know it. I cannot tell you how many calls I get, and I'll tell you who they're from. The jilted buyer and the jilted buyer's agent. Hey, Dave, I made an offer to the listing agent. I don't think the seller saw it. The deal closed for less than my offer, and I was all cash 10 days. This personally happened to me, so I can relate to you guys. And the deal closed in-house, dual agency for less money. The next thing I get is a call from the BRE, my friends down in San Diego, Leah Manis and Catherine Stambra and the troops. And I've worked with them, kind of against them, but we have mutual respect. We get along fine. Hey, Dave, how come that buyer who offered $50,000 more, that offer was rejected, or we don't even know if the seller ever saw it? How come it closed for less money in-house? And oh, by the way, the seller is 97 years old, and the seller didn't know what was going on. The seller trusted the agent. The agent is telling us, the BRE, the listing agent, hey, that seller didn't want people traipsing in here. They didn't want to have open houses. The agent for the seller, who double-ended it, said, oh, by the way, Mrs. Smith, the 97-year-old, very nice lady, I have cash investors ready to swoop in and buy this house. So to add to the hypothetical, the cash investor buys the house for below market, or at least that's the allegation that'll be made, does cosmetic repairs, puts lipstick on the pig, as they say, does floor coverings and wall and window treatments and all that. And then sold it for 100 more within about 2 months after they closed. The flipper investor, beware. And the BRE is onto this. Anybody see the bulletin that came out recently? They had a whole article on this issue. I get it. I know what the financial strains are on you. I know if you double in, you make more money, blah, 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 but now you're the fiduciary of both the buyer and the seller. Good luck. Good luck. The BRE is onto it. The BRE wasn't that active in this area going after these folks, these listing agents and brokers, to the same extent that they are now. Because what's happening is, I call them the jilted buyer, the jilted buyer's agent. They're not wasting time. I shouldn't say wasting time. They're not going to the board on a grievance. They might. They're going directly, to the source, to the licensing agency, the Bureau of Real Estate, and complaining. And the Bureau is very, very active. Has anybody here not had a situation where you present your offer and you have no idea if the seller even looked at it? Yeah, everybody here has gone through that. The moral to the story is, if you're going to double in, that's fine. Probably half or more deals in the state of California are, in fact, in-house dual agency situations. But, and it's a big but, be careful. Have the trail. If you're the listing agent, I know some listing agents, when the market was a little bit hotter than now, I understand it's cooling a little bit. But you can have a property that you have the coming soon sign and get 47 offers. And so the sellers are overwhelmed. That's what I'm told by the listing agents. And you guys are my friends. This is what I do. I'm here to protect you, not yell at you. But I have listing agents who say, Dave, we have 15 offers in the first 24 hours. I can't go over each and every one of those in detail with my sellers. Oh, yes, you can. You're going to take the time to do that. And I want at the bottom of page 10 that acknowledgement by the seller that says I reject the offer. What other proof do we have that the seller indeed was presented with all offers? And oh, by the way, if that seller is going to accept an offer that's going to be double-ended or whatever, maybe not, that's less than the other offer from the jilted buyer, I better have some real good reasons, and the seller better have real good reasons why it was rejected. Maybe the lower offer was better. It can be. The number doesn't dictate. Maybe it was all cash 10 days. Or one of these ridiculous offers with the box check that said, I hereby remove all contingencies. What was CAR thinking? It's like the TDS that says, I note nothing for disclosure. That box under, it's a Roman numeral 3, or I think it's under both 3 and 4. Now you use the AVID. You can't tell me that there's any property in the universe that doesn't have something noteworthy that should be disclosed to the buyer. Yes?
I was just going to ask you what you thought of the demand to present my offer letter, the CAR letter. See that one?
I'm not familiar with it. It says, I demand that you present the offer, even though the NAR Code of Ethics and the MLS rules require it. CAR has doubled down and they have a demand to present the offer.
Yeah,
That's good. That's fine. Yeah, psychologically, maybe that's better. But as a listing agent, you have an obligation to show seller all offers, unless the seller in writing has said, I don't see them. And I don't want to see those letters. I don't want to do that. I mean, how do I defend the industry, the listing side, if the property hasn't been put into the MLS and exposed to the market, as opposed to your investors? I'm mad as hell and won't take it anymore. I feel like Howard Beale in that movie Network. And I am. I know what's going on. I had the same situation with a large brokerage where I walked in at an open house and I said, 10 days, all cash. My offer, I couldn't get arrested, as they say. They weren't interested. Later on, I found out it was double-ended for less money. Now, am I going to do anything about it? No. I mean, I'm affiliated with the industry, but man, I'll tell you, it's getting really nasty. So back to one other item before we jump into the issues here on the outline. And that has to do with presenting all offers. We talked about that. We talked about listings. How do I prove in a court of law that my seller got top dollar if I didn't test the market? Oh, but Dave, I gave them a CMA or CMV. They, you know, I know this market. I farm it. I don't have to use that wording anymore. But this is, I'm very familiar with prices and I'm very familiar with value. And this problem had, you know, certain items that weren't up to par, that had a cracked slab, whatever. And so I gave them my best number. Let me tell you something. If you get to court, and I've been there defending agents and brokers, the seller, who now has become a very popular plaintiff in the lawsuit, their attorney will bring in a forensic appraiser. In other words, an appraiser for sale. And that forensic appraisal will find a number higher than what the seller sold it for without exposing it to the market. How do I defend that? Okay, then I bring in my defense forensic appraiser, and it's a battle. But if the jury feels sorry for this poor seller, oftentimes a senior, you got a problem. There's exposure in a case like that. So I get it. I understand the financial pressures that are pushing y'all, but it's just not worth it. All you need, I tried a case years ago for a broker, 3.5-week jury trial. The jury was out for 2 days. They came back in, defense verdict, 12-0 for my broker. She jumped up and gave me a hug and a kiss and said, I'll never do this again. I will never be exposed like this again. Tough lesson, really tough. And some people think, you know, insurance is going to cover everything. Guess again. You guys are on claims-made policies. That means you better report the claims before the end of the policy period. Sometimes there's like a 30-day grace period after it expires. But that's not, I mean, insurance companies are looking for an excuse not to cover and defend you in lawsuits. And if you think, oh no, I better not canvass the office and find out if there are any claims or potential claims, and I turn all those over to the carrier, oh, that's going to hurt me in my premiums next year. You know what hurts? When the insurance company says, no, you knew about this claim 2 months ago before the policy expired. We're not going to cover you. We're not going to defend you. Turn them in. Turn everything in you can think of. I know buyers and sellers are whiny little whatevers, and they're always complaining about something, but, you know, talk to your manager, your broker, your owner, whoever, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's my position on that. The other item I wanted to mention before we jump into the outline, I promise, Fred, I'll give you at least 5 minutes. Fred is doing a bang-up job for us. He's a terrific young lawyer, great pick. I don't know what he's doing with us, but so in any event, financial elder abuse is rampant. We have an article on our White and Bright website that talks about that. I mean, if you see any articles, it's like $80 billion industry by the crooks that is just the tip of the iceberg. We have a graying population. Who owns houses? Who are selling? Typically, it's going to be a senior, or more often than not. I'm told by CAR that something like 28% of the selling market, the listing side, of the sellers, are 65 and older. I think it's more than that. I mean, are there any millennials who have been in a house for a period of time and are selling? Probably not a whole lot. My generation, the baby boomers, yeah, we're starting to downsize and moving into assisted living. In fact, my wife told me we're moving into assisted living next week. Only she's not coming with me. So the point is, under the Welfare and Institutions Code, 65 and older, undue influence or fraud. That's the big boy combo. You take that, you stir it up in a pot, and you're off and running. If you're representing a senior seller, again, 65 and older, I pass that up. No, I've got it in verse 56. No, 65 and older. A seller can be off to the races and find a lawyer who will file a lawsuit and say the property is undersold, especially when it's off market and the market hasn't been tested. Well, my seller didn't want people traipsing through the house. My seller was moving to assisted living. My seller didn't have time. They trusted me. My seller really wanted to do a couple little repairs and didn't want to hassle with putting the property on the market. Really? Seriously? Is that what, and you're gonna say, you know, yeah, you're right, you shouldn't put it on the market. I got buyers in the wings. It's a recipe for disaster. You know, a lot of these sellers don't have legal capacity. They don't understand what they're doing. At least that's the argument that's gonna be made. And to prove financial elder abuse, you don't have to prove lack of legal capacity on the part of the seller. The seller doesn't have to have dementia, Alzheimer's, or whatever. Seller could be a nuclear physicist who's 66 years old, who will say, I didn't really understand. I'm not in real estate. Nobody talked to me. Nobody helped me. They were in for a quick sell. They wanted to kill it. You know, I say nowadays, from what I've seen, and again, representing this industry for decades, where we're headed is, you sign up the buyer or seller, hand it to the TC, where's my check? That is the three-step dance that I'm seeing more and more and more. And you know what that's gonna do? Maybe it's good for a quick fix now, but at the end of the day, why are they gonna need you? I mean, to sign them up, hand it to a TC and close and pick up 3% of a $1.5 million deal, $45,000 for working. I know you work hard, but that's the perception the public has. What distinguishes you from selling cars or whatever is your fiduciary duty to that seller. That means putting their interest ahead of your own. All right? And I've won cases because the cases that I've tried, I had fiduciaries, agents, brokers that were terrific. They really cared. And that's what the jury looks for. Did you own the transaction? Did you get your arms around it? Did you protect the seller from herself or himself? And really, that's what it comes down to. A buyer might say, all cash, I don't need an appraisal. You've done a great CMV, CMA, a market analysis. I don't need you to, we don't need to arrange for an appraisal. I don't want to go through that. It's about protecting people from themselves. Because then they're going to close and find out maybe they paid too much, they'll come after you. Even though they were very clear, I don't want an appraisal. A client can come into my office and say, I want you to commit malpractice. Either they're going to go get another attorney, because I won't, or we're going to do it right. So I'm sorry for getting preachy. I have a lot to get off my chest. I want you I'm trying to help. I want you all to send me an hour's worth of shrink bill. You know, you guys are terrific. I could listen to myself forever. But this market is crazy. It is crazy what's going on. And these, you know, you walk into an open house and there's a listing agent there. And oftentimes they are young kids and they've been given their marching orders and they're just full of themselves and everything else. I've told the industry this before. You don't have to sell. Don't sell. Keep it simple. I wish the MLS was you just registered the address of the property, maybe a photo. But the fact is, I keep looking at remarks. I get all these cases coming in to defend. And under the remarks, it's newly constructed or brand new or
Completely renovated.
Pardon me?
Completely
Completely renovated. What does the word completely mean? It better be completely. Otherwise, you're going to get some bottom-feeding lawyer for the buyer who's going to say, oh, it wasn't completely. The plumbing was the old plumbing. You lied to me. Now I want $100,000 for the plumbing and XYZ. Don't sell. Property sells itself. And I keep reading the remarks, and they're just glowing and wonderful. There is a civil code section called 1088, California Civil Code Section 1088. Look it up, Google it. What does it say? It says that you are responsible as listing agents for the information that's for the truth of the information that's contained in the MLS. I mean, that's kind of a summary of it, 1088. I'm surprised more. We don't have any other attorneys here, do we, Fred? I don't think so. I'm surprised more attorneys don't allege a violation of Civil Code Section 1088. Well, my seller told me that it was 5,000 square feet. Really? You believe everything you're told? How did your seller know? Yes, sir.
How does the buyer to verify all before close of escrow?
It's
I see
cute.
that too.
Yeah, now, the question is, and it's a great question, what about where it says in the remarks or wherever, that the buyer is to verify all numbers? Yeah, and that's fine, but it doesn't mean anything. There's a case that came out of the courts a few years ago called Furla, F-U-R-L-A versus John Douglas up in LA. The seller was, I believe, an architect in a building. The seller told the listing agent, this house is 5,000 square feet. What better source can you get? An architect. Pulled out the plans. Turned out the house was maybe 3,500 square feet. Real ticked off buyer. And the agent, the listing agent, the seller tried to get out of the case, filed a pretrial motion. Court of Appeals said, no. Whether the buyer relied upon the incorrect information from the seller or the agent is a question of fact for the jury. It's a jury going to deal with that. There's no silver bullet, no release. I mean, it's good. I like it. And I always ask the question of the buyer, didn't you read that? Yeah, but I trusted my agent. I trusted the other agent. These were licensed professionals. They told me what they believed, and I believed them. You know, my defense is, how can anybody ever believe a real estate agent? That doesn't go well. Sorry, guys. I'm kidding. All right. Well, let's, we're going to be done at 1:30. We got some time. Let's jump into the legal update. Outline. Broker practice trust funds. Anybody still using a trust account? Any property managers here? I'll tell you, you probably know this. I know Wayne Bell, the commissioner. He and I have spoken together in large crowds. And Wayne told me, he's a good guy, he's a lawyer. I've known him forever. It's been in the department, I think, most of his professional life. And Wayne said, we are going to roll up every single property management company in the state of California. We're going to audit. We're going to make sure that you're following the rules, that you're reconciling each account every month, that you're not overdrawn. Oh, but the rent check was coming in and I had to pay the mortgage. No. Until that clears, you don't have the money. It doesn't count. So the big deal for them is, are you in balance? Are you, with your trust account? Is the account open in the correct name? Is it in the name of the broker as a trust account? Does it specifically say on the signature cards that this is a trust account? Because let me tell you, a lot of banks will say, oh no, that's too much of a hassle, but we'll send you statements every month that says trust account. BRE doesn't care about that. What the BRE is concerned about is that if your account isn't properly titled or captioned, then it's not a trust account. In terms of creditors trying to execute judgments against it. It's just a personal account. I'd find another bank if they won't make certain that the card, the signature card, setting up that account doesn't reflect that it's a trust account. Because again, the statements are nice, they're cute, I use them all the time, but at the end of the day, they're going to go down to the bank and say, let's see the SIG cards. We make sure this is really a trust account. Okay, so trust funds, unfortunately, very few people use them. You know, the buyers are going to make their deposits directly into escrow. That's great. I wouldn't touch the money. I wouldn't go near it. I wouldn't go near it. A few years ago, I had a case in which my broker was alleged to have a $2.7 million shortage in his trust account. Well, I picked up the case after his license had been revoked by an administrative law judge and commissioner. And I went to the Superior Court. It's called a writ. It's kind of an appeal. And my defense was it was only 1.25. It wasn't 2.7. And believe it or not, I was able to negotiate a settlement with the BRE. They demoted him to an agent with a restricted license. Oh, well, you know, he's doing great. He sends me a card every Christmas and says, thanks for all your help. And he's still out there. And the then commissioner, when this happened, Paula Zinnemann, I don't know if you remember her, Paula and I, again, you know, when you get old, you know everybody, but we've hung out for years. She pulled me up aside and said, how could you do this? how could you represent a guy who obviously stole this money? I said, no, Paula. How can you not create a higher bar to entry so that the people coming in, I mean, you guys are the tip of the iceberg. You're the best because you're here, you want to learn. But you deal with these run-of-the-mill agents every day, right? And you end up doing both sides because they're incompetent or they don't care or they're on to the next deal. I know what you go through. And she said, well, you don't understand, David. We need bodies or the big, CDs and C21 and whoever. They would scream and yell. So, if we made it harder to become an agent, in Illinois, it's broker only. I think they got rid of all their agents and they lost about 3,000 or 4,000 licensees who either didn't pass the test or didn't want to take the broker's test. I'm all for raising the bar, but that's just my opinion. I didn't get very far with it. Any questions on trust funds before we move on? Good. Well, most people don't do them. I'm so sorry that you're in property management. Here's an alert. Speaking of property management, I'm seeing this happen. Agents represent sellers, maybe a little different market. They can't sell the property. The listings aren't sold. And the agents will go to the seller and say, you know what, maybe you ought to just rent out the property to a market recovers or whatever. I think we're heading in that direction. And so the agent says, I'll help you find. They want to stay in the game. They want the listing when the seller decides really to sell. And the agent says to the seller, I can help you find a tenant. I'll be glad to manage your property. Well, great. So now we have amateur night at the opera. We have people who really don't know what they're doing in a very risky, potential high-end exposure business. You need pros like these ladies. And oh, by the way, the broker has a policy manual that says no property management. You think the broker knows what hurting these cats, what they're out there doing on a daily basis? Absolutely not. And so I tell my brokers always, get coverage for property management. Well, we don't do it. No, your agents are probably doing it. So why not get the coverage? It doesn't cost that much more to make sure property management is covered. Because the biggest high-end case I've ever settled out of 600 plus cases for agents and brokers was a property management case where property was leased to a very well-known family in La Jolla. Turns out the agents kind of maybe sort of knew that there was mold in the house. The tenant's kid, 3-4 years old, became violently ill, went to Rades. I mean, it was touch and go for a while. Highest end exposure case. So I encourage people not to dabble. Article 11 of the NAR Code of Ethics says, stay within your comfort zone. If you're doing residential property every day and somebody comes along and says, I got land I want to sell, or an apartment complex or commercial, be careful. Bring in somebody you could work with or get a referral fee. It's just, when you step outside your comfort zone and what you know, you're asking for trouble, in my opinion. Okay, that's all for broker trust funds. I'm done. Any further questions, Your Honor? Advertising. Well, this goes back to what I said before. Truth in advertising. Why exaggerate? Why give way to hyperbole? Beautiful views. How about that one? You ever seen that? If you've never not seen that. I mean, it's, property in La Jolla, etc., and it has a beautiful view. But guess what? There are probably no CC&Rs to protect view. And that neighbor to the west of the property being sold, well, they can grow trees that are 100 feet tall, or whatever the city ordinance allows. I mean, when you talk about views, most views aren't forever unless it's in a PUD, homeowners association, where there are CC&Rs that protect the integrity of views. Maybe you could say views today, but not sure tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, right now they're great views. In the future,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me add something to that.
Please, jump in there.
That's a really good point about protected views, is that people think they have this view, they've had it for 40 years. They don't have a protected view.
unless there's specific restriction.
Deed restriction.
Deed restriction, there's potentially an easement, or a couple of cities have it. Del Mar is one of them that has limited restrictions. Unless there's something like that in place, there is no protected view. And so when you're talking to your clients, and I tell this to people, when the little old lady's still there in that shack that's in front of your view, go to her, give her some money for that easement. Come to an attorney, whether it's us, whether it's someone else, get an easement so that when she passes away, someone doesn't come and put a 3-story house in front of you, because that's what happens, and that's the disputes we get. We get calls every month from someone saying there's a developer in front of us. They're putting in, I want to challenge it, and you can't. You have no protected views. So you can get a view easement, but you typically have to pay for it, and you have to record it. So that's something that's possible out there. Just for your knowledge, it's possible.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we're compelled to describe the view by virtue of our MLS giving us fields under which we describe what the view is without adjective or adverb or beyond. But there's a lack of permanence there too.
Of course.
So
how about in the remarks? An agent has not determined that view is protected. The sellers are going to go crazy. They're going to say, "What are you doing?" And we'll go list with somebody who doesn't want to say that. But the bottom line is, if you say view, you could be off to the races. They close escrow. Now the forensic appraiser, who I'm picking on today, comes in and says, that view is worth $150,000. Agent paid it. Seller paid it.
Well, I don't see how we're characterizing the longevity of the view if it's a field that we're just check marking in the MLS. It says there's an ocean view today.
But you don't say today.
Well, I would imagine though that that's what they're talking about is what's the property, what's the current condition. It's very generic.
Could that be put in the AVID? Can you just put that in like?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, can that be put in the AVID? That I have not determined if the view is protected by ordinance, easement, CCNRs, or otherwise, applicable. Yeah, I mean, it's better than not putting it in there, but I hate to say this, how many buyers and sellers, especially with DocuSign now, read anything? Especially when you go to the bottom page. I mean, it's better than not. Let's put it this way. I'll take that case.
Okay.
But now that you go to the bottom page and you go to next, unless the reader scrolls up, they don't even see what it is. It's just dumb. And I told CAR, come on, guys, help the industry. Yes.
There's a collaboration button in Zipform, and you can send the forms to them first and go over it with them, and it'll record the amount of time you spend on the form.
So it's like a PDF that goes to them?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great.
And it's the collaboration button. It saves you a ton of time, but also protects your emails. But if you do that, it will record the amount of time you spend on that form with that person.
Good for purchase agreements too, yourself.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's great. I know some agents will do a PDF of an offer, for
Yeah.
example,
I made my.
and then scan it, email it, or print it out, and sit down, hey, and then they'll go through it step by step with their buyers. The good, I'd love it if your practice is, I do not have my people sign anything without a sit down, or at the very least, spending time on the phone that I've documented. I have a log, a call log, that I can prove when I get to court, because guys and gals, when you get into court, buyers and sellers, they can be nuclear physicists and they become deaf, dumb, and blind. I mean, people are getting you guys all the time. Need it.
My two favorite statements are, if it isn't in writing, it didn't happen.
Right.
And the second one is, no good deed goes unpunished.
So
That
true.
covers everything.
How many times do I talk to my agents and brokers who are being sued and use that expression? But I tried to help them. The little old lady had put money down on her upleg, or whatever it's called, on Casa whatever. And we had to get it closed, otherwise she could lose her $250,000 deposit. I get it. A case I mediated, I'm also a mediator. Also loop cars and practice medicine, not just kidding. I did come on down to White and Bright. But there was a case in which a buyer was a very sophisticated real property investor up in LA. And the buyer was coming out of a 1031 exchange and had to close. You know, they got 45 days to identify from close and 180 from closed to closed on their upleg, downleg, whatever you call it. So the seller, without an appraisal, all cash, I'm sorry, the buyer pays all cash for a strip mall up in Menifee or something. And that particular seller, who became the buyer, said, no, I've got all cash, I don't have time for an appraisal, check the box, no appraisal, closed escrow, paid 13 million, found out it was worth about 9. And the agent said, well, wait a minute, this guy, I've known this guy, he's a childhood friend, we were in the same community in church, and I trusted him, he trusted me, he knew what he was doing. Well, guess what? A lot of money was paid to settle that case. I really think it's about slowing people down. And it could have been done. You could have had an appraisal within a short amount of time. It's slowing them down and fighting, kind of, to convince them that they're moving too fast. Well, no, I don't want a home inspection. Well, sorry, you're going to get one. And you want it to come out of my commission? I know, they try to gig you all the time. But there are certain things that people don't do to protect themselves and you have to advocate. Now, if the agent had sent an email to this buyer and said, you stupid idiot, start out that way, because that's good for politics. No, dear John, or whoever his name was, you and I have discussed the fact that it is my recommendation that you have the property appraised. I know it's all cash, but so what? If you don't have it appraised, that is against my recommendation. How long would that take? Just documenting that kind of thing. Minutes, case over, done deal. I know she had the conversation, but now the guy's denying it, as they all do, because they're looking at money. Money for nothing and whatever. You know, that's what you're after. Disclosures, death, and liability. God, this is a really uplifting bunch of topics. I'm so glad you guys are having fun. Well, you know, you have to disclose a death on the property within, 3 years of the offer. We all get that. I still get these cases in. And remember what that statute says, 18-something in the Civil Code. The statute says, unless asked a specific question. So the death could have been 10 years ago, and you don't disclose it, and you say, whoopee, I'm out of the 3-year zone. But then the agent or the buyer comes in and says, no, I asked the agent for the seller specifically. Something weird here. Was there a death on the property? Ever? Well, I got my 3 years. Kind of clear. Not so much. Statute specifically says, unless specifically asked. And what I tell my sellers, that's tough. I mean, I've had cases where adult kids have committed suicide and the parents are grieving and they're the trustees of the trust, and it's just awful. But it's got to be put out there because there are a lot of people and cultures that just don't want to deal with property that's had that issue. Yes.
Do you have to disclose how they died or just?
Well, I'm asked that all the time. Some people say, oh, only if it's a violent death. I think you get down to material facts. What's material? Facts that are that affect the value or desirability of the property. I had some people call me when they're going to murder in the foyer of the house, the entryway, and there had been bullet holes all over the place and had been fixed and rehabbed. And they asked me that question: who's going to know? All I have to do is describe death. I don't think so. I'm going to put in there if there was a suicide. Now, there's no obligation, in fact, almost a prohibition, to state whether death occurred by HIV or AIDS. You know, there's protected classes that you don't go into. Besides which, how do you know? I mean, you're not doctors, and you're not going to look at medical records. I think especially, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Fred, if there's been a violent death, I want to see that in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I might disagree a little bit with, because unless you get your seller's agreement to do that, because you may be breaching some confidentiality.
I suppose.
If you do that, but I want to raise something that I just saw at CAR. I was up there, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, up in Sacramento, where I had never heard of this, but I guess, and maybe you guys have. This is a good question. People are coming to San Diego and renting property in order to die. I had never heard of this, but apparently it was a topic raised at CAR that people are getting Airbnbs on the beach or something like that, and they're coming almost for a hospice thing, where they're coming, they're inviting friends, they stay on the beach, they have this last week of their life, and then they're passing away. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it was a topic because of, okay, now we have a disclosure issue. We have this high-end house that people, and they're not telling the Airbnb people that they're doing this. You know, they're just renting.
Yeah, special.
Yeah, they're not disclosing that. It's not, they're not advertising that. But now these high-end houses now have this major issue. So I don't know if you guys have seen that. It was news to me, but that's apparently what's going on. So, it kind of goes into this topic of what you have to disclose. I think you probably have to disclose that there were 5 deaths on the property, and that would trigger some questions for people, right? Why were there so many deaths on this property in the last year? So, if you're doing anything like that, and if your property was a former Airbnb or was a former vacation rental, I'd ask that question of their sellers. What was it used for?
Yeah, how many?
I have a question about death also.
Oh, yeah.
Not death, not property. So I represented a buyer. We bought a house 3 years ago, but now they're selling it. Turns out one of the neighbors came to the open house, and this was last year. But the neighbor told us that there was a violent murder 20 years ago. But now, does that become a material fact?
Well, let's put it this way. They're going to close escrow. The question was.
This was last year.
Yeah. The question was if neighbors and rumors go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember the foundation being lifted and they did this and they did that. Sometimes the neighbor is correct. Sometimes they're saying stuff because they hated the sellers, or they're looking to low bid and buy the house. I mean, there's all kinds of motivations. The concern I have, if you don't put something about that in the MLS and it closes, that neighbor's going to be the first person over there with cookies and say, "Didn't they tell you? Didn't they tell you this?"
They told him they're going to tell the new owners.
They are. And so if you're going to disclose that, I would recommend that neighbor has told us that this occurred. We have no information to corroborate that whatsoever. I mean, it's very factual. Disclosures are tough. I had a case, I've told you this before, some in the group, where a police officer, high-ranking police officer, came to me and said, "We have to sell." I said, "Why?" He said, "My daughter was 5 years old, and the kindergarten teacher called up and said, 'Your daughter told us that the guy they called Grandpa next door molested her.'" Now what do? I don't want to defame the neighbor who they call Grandpa, but I'm concerned if I sell to a family and Grandpa does something, now I'm on the hook. So what we did was we created a disclosure. I helped drafted it that said just what I told you. A kindergarten teacher called and told me the daughter said XYZ. And he put that in his TDS, SBQ, I don't know if we even had him yet. Sold the house to an older couple that said, "We don't care. We're fine." But, you put it out there and let God sort it out. You know what I'm saying? I am a zealous advocate for disclosures. And if a buyer doesn't want to buy, learning about something, it's a good day. Yeah. God bless. Goodbye, buyer. And there will be somebody who will buy, especially in this market, as long as it wins. So when in doubt, if you say, "Should I disclose?" Yeah. Yes.
We have, and I think it's on the CAR letters. It's a 5-step disclosure, basically exactly what you just said. Neighbors told me this. I haven't verified it. Not gonna verify it. Suggest you verify it. Here it is.
They learned from me. I have been working with CAR. In fact, I represented a hotline attorney who got sued years ago and June Barlow and Neil Kalin, they're all pals. And we've been collaborating and working together. I was on Standard Forms Committee at CAR at the state level for years. And then they finally got tired of me putting my 2 cents in and telling them, you guys can't do this, or you should do that. And they put me on the Standard Forms Industrial Committee. When I went to the first meeting, nobody showed up because there was no industrial committee. That's my friends at CAR, Neil and June. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, disclosures. You don't want to color code or sugar coat. If there are cracks in the stucco, you say cracks in the stucco. You don't say how many, you don't say whether it's cosmetic. Just very, very bare bones factual. And then it's the burdens on the buyer to investigate. Yes.
Quick question just about working with a buyer, and they were notified that the house that they're interested in might have a neighbor issue. So would it be okay for me to just ask the agent? The agent might not know, but should they ask then their seller?
Oh, yeah.
What's up with
Let me tell you about that. And I have that situation right now. Not with my neighbors. I love my neighbors. It's funny. I came home the other day and I found survey stakes in my front yard. I know that I have a prescriptive easement to use that